This entire military is one cohesive, dedicated force. And the threats to our nations, they don't sleep. They're watching our every move. Iran, Russia, China, North Korea, ISIS, Al-Qaeda. They may be watching this right now. Our military should not be mistaken for a cable news gabfest show. We don't care what you look like. We don't care who you voted for, who you worship, what you worship, who you love. It doesn't matter if your dad left you millions when he died or if you knew who your father was. We have been honed into a machine of lethal moving parts that you would be wise to avoid if you know what's good for you. We will not be intimidated. We will not back down. We don't want war. But if you want war with the United States of America, there's one thing I can promise you, so help me God. Someone else will raise your sons and daughters.
Opinions expressed in this program are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of any entities they represent.
Find us on the web at mbradio.us.
Welcome to Gunslingers Tavern. I'm Audrey McHugh. I'm a bisexual, open woman that served in the military, Brownwater Navy. Shout out to my Airedales. 1 in 3 veterans experience military sexual trauma. Here we use whiskey for good and talk about all different events that affect veterans and how we can do better to make sure that no one has to release their burden of rape at these gates anymore, and ensure that veterans' lives are advocated and lived for. Hey guys, welcome to Gunslingers Tavern, where I sling the truth and I sling some drinks. So you guys, you made it. Yeah, you made it through another week. So cheers to that. So l'chaim, as my people say. So hold on. Okay, let's get to it. So I recently had a meeting with someone, and so let me backtrack. I work on legislation and I write legislation for veterans, whether you're a Republican or Democrat. Veteran issues are supposed to be nonpartisan, and none of us asked what party we were when we were killing the enemy. We just made sure that we had each other's six. And a solemn oath to this country has always been that we would defend the rights of veterans, because we defend the rights of everyone. And veterans are not being cared for in this country and have not been for in a long time. So I was having a meeting with someone from the Senate as well as a House representative today. And I have to tell you, I was greatly disturbed, because one of the issues I was talking about had to do with their actual constituents, active duty service members in that state that they represent. And the response I got from them was, well, the senior ranking member on the Armed Forces Committee has precedence, over that. And I thought to myself, there's no way, because your constituents are the people that you actually represent. So therefore, those people are the ones that you're supposed to defend, and they have to be active duty service members, and they need your help. So I wanted to bring this to your attention, because in every single war, my family, both my married in and maternal and paternal bloodlines, have fought in every single war. My family fought in war before this country was even formed. Before there was even a revolution, my family fought. And I fought because I served this country. So it was disturbing to think of monarchy in democracy. And so what do I mean by that? I mean that when we fought for this country, for the revolution, that when my family funded the actual revolution, okay, there's a statue to my great-great-great uncle in DC and in Philadelphia as the funder of the revolution. That when we fought for that, we decided that we would not be a monarchy. That when George Washington, who did not want to be president, decided that he would put term limits and not run again, and then we had to officially make sure that that we enacted term limits, but that he did not want to be a king, that he wanted to be a president in the republic. That it is very important to ensure that democracy thrives, that veterans in this nation have continued to actually make sure that civil liberties are secured, that liberty is secured, that justice is secured, while the rest of civilians could carry on and not pay attention. But the time is now to recognize that everyone must participate in the evolution of democracy, an evolution of a revolution, just like my family did, just like I currently do, and just like those who serve do and did. To say that someone in a Senate or in the House has ranking over your constituents and over you means that you have enacted monarchy in a democracy. Truly, that you believe in ranking rather than defending the rights of active duty service members who happen to be constituents in your district. You are not defending democracy. You are participating in tyranny. We all fought to ensure that a democracy, the republic, would be free, not filled with corruption and tyranny. I also want to bring to your attention what it looks like in DC. Many of you might feel like really good if you go down there for a lobbying day, and perhaps you actually get to meet with your representative. If you don't, you meet with their staffer. What a lot of people don't know is that there are many staffers there, and many of them don't stay there longer than a year. They're gone like that. They just use it as a doorstep to meet high-profile people that could help them in their career. And even the people that are appointed, so they're called fellows, and they're usually from the military and they're on active duty. They only stay there for a year. And that's what they make most of the veterans who are nonprofits, who are advocating, or just veterans who are concerned about issues that are affecting veterans and people in the republic see. They actually just see that. So how disturbing is it that we know that when my family wrote legislation, and now I write legislation, that they wrote it themselves. They wrote it on little desks in Philadelphia, and there were no rankings, right? It was called to order by George Washington or Adams or the Morrises, and then there was legislation. But no one had seniority. No one had ranking. There were not committees. It was to ensure that there was freedom of thought and process, that every single person that was a representative got to have their voice heard for their people that they represented. How far we have fallen from that. It is about to be the 250th year of this nation. But are we really in democracy? I say we are not. Are we really in the democracy that my family fought for, and that probably many of your family fought for, or if you're a veteran, that you fought for? Are you truly in a democracy? These people do not even know what freedom tastes like. If you ever go to Philadelphia and you go into the old city, there's still the cobblestones there. And of course, you can see Independence Hall, but I encourage you to walk around. And there are still streets where you can taste what democracy feels like. That when we fought for this nation and we decided that there would be no kings, no queens, that there would be democracy, and that the minority of the people, that their voice would always be heard, that we could ensure to empower that voice. That's not being heard right now. And no matter if you are a Republican or a Democrat, that should disturb you greatly. Because when one person's civil liberties is attacked, it is an attack on all of us. And it is something now that I think, as we're approaching 250 years of this country, that we really need to focus on. Because most people have not really been enshrined in what democracy looks like, or have taken an oath to the Constitution. If you joined the military and you're enlisted, your oath to the Constitution never expires. You only have your enlistment oath. That's very critical, because when it says against all enemies, foreign and domestic, it meant forever, that you would defend it forever. And veterans do this all the time. We are always doing things for our brothers and sisters. We have nonprofits because the government has failed veterans in every aspect. Recently, they said that the Medicaid that is being attacked, that many veterans are on Medicaid, that it's being attacked and that it would hurt veterans. And I thought to myself immediately, I said, well, that's very easy to fix. It would take 2 lines, and all it would have to do would be to exempt active duty military and exempt the Guard, because I have to tell you how horrendous it is. If you ever have been enlisted or a service member that joined the National Guard, you do not get the same benefits that I, who served on active duty, get. And it is a dishonor, truly a dishonor to them. So you would have to write legislation, put it in a bill, and exempt it for veterans and exempt it for all active duty service members, including guardsmen, whether they are activated or not. It's 2 lines to write that, and I write legislation so I would know. And instead, they used it as a talking point. That veterans are a talking point. Rather than actually doing something, it is a talking point. When did we become that? Because for far too long, we as veterans and active duty service members have taken the brunt of what it looks like to defend democracy. You might hear somebody say, thank you for your service. But if it was really thank you for your service, would you not write legislation that would actually protect veterans and active duty service members, rather than posturing and saying that this will harm veterans? You would. But instead, we're a talking point. It's the principle in this. When you go to sleep tonight, and I hope you have a restful sleep, there are many veterans and active duty service members that will either be standing watch, or they can't sleep because they have nightmares, or they have flashbacks, whether that might be from rapes in the military or combat. They can't sleep. They can't sleep. PTSD is an abuser. PTSD wants you to keep cycling in the past, or it wants to put you in negativity. And veterans have complex PTSD. PTSD means one singular event. If you serve 4 years, you have complex PTSD. That means multiple events of what is trauma have occurred to you as a service member. And many veterans have ailments. They have chronic diseases, chronic pain, because your body stores this pain. and it doesn't know what to do with it while it's trying to re-regulate constantly in your brain from PTSD, because PTSD neurologically changes your brain. Your brain chemicals change. And we have borne the cost. And instead of saying that you will keep the solemn oath that was given by George Washington, his very self, during the Newburgh Revolt. And if you don't know what the Newburgh Revolt is, well, let me school you, but only after I get a drink, because I served this country. And bourbon, by the way, is military made. We used it to fight the British, so we made our own bourbon. So if you're a veteran and you don't have dependency on alcohol, please enjoy. So this veteran does. So the Newburgh Revolt. Basically, we won the war. We finally secured our freedom. Our allies had helped us. And then, guess what? They started to legislate and argue about how we would revenue tax in this new country that we had formed. And they decided to not pay the military. That's right, you heard me. They decided to not pay military officers. So immediately, the officers gathered their men, and there were women there too, by the way. Many women spied for this country. So they charged down there. They started to burn stuff, and George Washington heard of this and immediately got on his horse and went down there. And he gave the most stirring speech about how veterans would be taken care of in this country and how much we had endured to secure this freedom, and that from now on, that veterans would be cared for. And so much so that the officers cried. They wept. And they said, you know what? Okay, we know we will get paid, but veterans and active duty, the militia, must always be well regulated, but always must be cared for, compensated, and paid for. That was the agreement. So when George Washington became a master mason on October 11th, he became a master mason. He said he will always carry these principles of being a master mason in everything he does. And so that was that agreement, a solemn oath given to veterans by George Washington himself to care for every single active duty service member and every veteran in this country for as long as it existed. And Ben Franklin said, so long as you can keep it, that is how long we can have a democracy. So long as you can keep it, so long as you can defend it, we would have a democracy. Are we really defending it? I don't think so. I think when you look at the words and you see monarchy and a democracy, that what the Constitution truly meant, that only liberty is put in there and not freedom, very specifically crafted that liberty rather than freedom would be there, so that because freedom can be manipulated, but liberty cannot. That's why we have a Liberty Bell. So I think we need to start asking ourselves, when the Constitution was enacted, there were supposed to be no ranks, no class, that you were actually supposed to have liberty, that there was supposed to be no monarchy. So you weren't supposed to have a middle class. You weren't supposed to have a lower class. You weren't supposed to have an upper class. That in order to ensure democracy, the class system was supposed to be demolished. But you didn't see that. What happened was, there are many people that helped secure the revolution. So that includes the First Nation, women, blacks in that country, I don't know what to say, but African Americans. And then there was a meeting of the minds. And so they made treaties, and these treaties were supposed to be honored. And instead, they decided that we would make slavery still a part of our country. And imagine that if instead we had enacted the Constitution based on the words and treaties that we actually agreed to secure liberty for this country, we would have never had a civil war. How more advanced we would be as a nation, as a republic. And did you know that the word republic was always really used until Woodward Wilson? So we used the word republic and defended republic until about World War I. So you have a shift. You have a shift from the Gilded Age, and now when we're propelled into industrialization, which actually corrupted democracy. And my family has still been fighting for what they signed for in the Constitution since then. My family signed the Constitution. They signed a Declaration of Independence. It is very important that we actually fight for what we actually were supposed to have to begin with. We were not supposed to have a middle class. We were not supposed to have an upper class. We were not supposed to have a poor class, because that is what it is. We were really, truly supposed to have that all men are created equal. That when we practice the Constitution and enact it and say the 14th Amendment, that all men are created equal, that equal protection under the law applies for every American. And even it has applied for aliens, because we have determined that in the Supreme Court. But are we really doing that? Do you feel like you're doing that right now? Do you feel like democracy is really still here? Or do we have a wisp of what it used to be? Because we have two choices. We have a choice of being a democracy that is a mockery of what our Constitution truly is, and a shadow of it, and having corporations try to control through social media and other means of what democracy should truly be. Or we could be the evolution of a revolution. And in every time period, we have had an evolution of a revolution. And if you don't know what I'm referencing, then I shall tell you. So we had that during the Civil War. We had that during World War I. Women got the right to vote, which they were granted in the Constitution, and then it was backtracked. Then we had that an evolution of a revolution for the Civil Rights Movement. So we are currently in our evolution of a revolution. And what it really means now is how many Americans are going to participate in true democracy to fight for the republic. Because we as veterans, and my family has borne the cost of war. My family has fought in every single conflict that we have had. I have fought for this country. When are you guys going to fight for this country? Because that's what we're in. We're in a true fight where we say, no longer will we have class systems. We will truly have what the Constitution has said we will be, that all men are created equal. And men was a general term. It meant women as well. It meant that every citizen would be created as equal. That was so important. You don't have that in a monarchy. Yet what is being represented in the Senate and the House of Representatives is ranking systems, that the most senior member will decide whether a bill is brought forth based on seniority or what committees they are appointed to. That a person that represents a large amount of constituents then cannot bring in legislation without permission from a ranking member. And does that not sound like a monarchy? I do believe that we fought against lords, ladies, a court, and a whole king. We did, and we won. So in order for our democracy to thrive, we must end tyranny. We must end corruption. And that means getting big money out of politics, because it wasn't called politics then. Do you know what it was called? When people were actually legislators and wrote their own legislation, they were called statesmen. Statesmen. Most of your people that you know now that represent you write zero of their legislation. Their staffers do. They don't write it. I say this to you. Go to a meeting and you'll see it'll be controlled, and ask a question. And when you ask them a question at one of these town halls, you have to ask everything in basically a few sentences, and then you don't have time to rebut them or refute them. But ask them something about the legislation that they passed. So an example would be, if a Jew, and I am proudly Jewish, in Virginia was literally at a campus and they were being harassed or then targeted for being Jewish, which constitutes as a hate crime, would that hate crime bill that is actually in Virginia be able to be enacted? And if they can't answer yes or no, and the answer is clearly yes, by the way, then they didn't write their own legislation. Their staffer did. That's what you have. You have politicians that are a face of what a false democracy is and does not even write their legislation. Do you know how much they make each month? Anybody? No. They make $15,000 a month. I'm betting that even extraordinary Americans that are considered middle class or poor class could write legislation and actually represent and be grateful for $15,000. Did I also mention that when you become a House of Representative, and that's a 2-year term, that you get paid for the rest of your life, and that you actually have health care benefits for the rest of your life? And while they are attacking our VA systems as veterans that we earned, and I want to tell you why. Privatization means that corporate interest of insurance companies get to finally have a piece of the VA. So they did that with community care, which some community care is very helpful. But the priority is to dismantle the VA that we earned, that we've had for a very, very long time. One of the VAs I go to was created before World War II, and I love it there. It's beautiful. But what they haven't done is for anesthesiologists, for example, I get ketamine infusions because I have chronic regional pain syndrome type 2. It's the highest known pain syndrome known to man. I was not able to walk. They told me I would never walk again. I was in a wheelchair. And then I couldn't walk for 1.5 years, and I was on an e-scooter. And I have to get ketamine infusions. And those infusions have helped me walk again and helped with my TBI and PTSD. But because they don't have enough anesthesiologists at the VA, I can't get it every month like I need. I have to wait every 6 months to get care that I need. And they won't allow me to use it for community care because it's not FDA approved. How convenient, right? Literally, somebody could come into my house and give me ketamine infusions and I could get it every single month, but they won't do it. Now, they need more anesthesiologists. Okay, well, it costs a lot of money to become an anesthesiologist. But also, in order to work for the federal government, and I used to be a GS-12, which is an O3 equivalent in the military, so captain, you have to take a pay cut to work for the federal government. And so not many want to actually work for the federal government as a doctor unless they need to pay loans, student loans, or they have a family member that is service connected, or they were a veteran, or they are just a patriot. So that means recruiting for VA high quality doctors is very, very hard. And then they don't have enough FTEs. So they don't have enough job openings, even though they surely need it at the VA. And so that's why there's been a shift to not hire enough service providers for the VA and then to outsource to community care, not because they want to help a veteran actually get faster care. It's because they want to dismantle the VA. And so if we as veterans just demand that they actually hire enough doctors to provide us care and to fire the people that don't want to be there, that don't want to actually take care of veterans, we can do that as whether you're a Republican, an independent, or a Democrat. Like, we can do that as veterans because we did it on the battlefield. So we could do it together. But that's what this is about. And so now about 50% of care for the VA is now outsourced, literally outsourced. So this is kind of very disturbing. But I want you to know that like some of it's really good because COVID, dental clinics are like backlogged, completely backlogged. And so being able to get community care for dental is really, really great. But that itself, getting your approval for dental care is horrendous. And did you know that while you served on active duty, you got dental care? It was part of it. But politicians, not statesmen, decided that, gosh, it's just too much money to take care of veterans. So in order for you to get dental care, you have to be 100% service connected. I'm 100% service connected for multiple things. The VA fuzzy math is another thing. But that was done intentionally to not take care of veterans who actually need dental care. How is that not connected to your overall health? It truly, truly is. Because a dental infection can lead to other chronic pain in your body. It makes sense to take care of a veteran and take care of their teeth because it is shown that if you do that, they have lower rates of infection. So we as veterans have always been defending democracy, but we really have to understand how politicians work because it's not only a Democrat that is doing that, it's Republicans as well. So another example I'll give you is they'll have a certain representative keep introducing the same legislation, which is great because now they can just say, oh, well, the other party won't do anything. So, go lobby them or go advocate to them, and I'll keep introducing this legislation so it looks like I'm doing something. But I got to tell you that from living in DC, that many of them talk to each other and their staffers talk to each other. So they're usually kind of knowing what's going on. So, for example, this representative keeps introducing this legislation and keeps blaming the Republicans. However, the Republicans have said on this veteran issue, if you just take 2 lines out of the bill, we will sign on to it. We will become co-sponsors. And it keeps going into the Judiciary Committee. But so now what can the Democrat do? This Democrat can now keep saying, I can keep introducing this legislation, and it's the Republicans' fault. But now the Republicans have had real conversations with them and know that the guy is just posturing. And so his constituents think like, oh, he's really strong in this issue. He keeps pushing it. But man, these stupid fucking Republicans won't do anything about it. And they're trying to hurt veterans. But that's not the case. So now the Republicans now know that this Democrat really doesn't care about this issue for veterans at all, that he's just posturing, because they asked him to take these 2 lines out. And they literally said, we will get it through, pass this bill, and then in the next year, introduce it in another bill or put it into the NDAA. Which, by the way, that's the National Defense Authorization Act, and that happens every year. So it already happened. It happened in the summer, and it was closed door this year, which is not okay. So that's how this really works. So now the Republicans now know that this Democrat isn't really trying to help veterans at all, but he's just going to keep introducing the legislation so his constituents will keep voting for him and keep blaming the Republicans that really just say, these 2 lines, we can't do it because our constituents wouldn't agree with it. And we want to help veterans, but we just need you to take those 2 lines out. That's what politics looks like. That's not statesmen. That's not people actually trying to help the republic. That's not people actually trying to fight for veterans. So I think some of us really have to fight for democracy in a totally different way. It's about to be Passover. I'm Jewish, and my people are still being held hostage by terrorists. And I can't believe it. I can't believe that my people were raped, murdered, burned alive, tortured on October 7th, and that they're still not home. And that the Red Cross, who is supposed to go check on hostages, haven't done that, have participated in terrorist organizations where they're actually parading them around, which is a violation of their own human rights accord, their own agreement with the UN, and that my people are still being raped and tortured every day by terrorists. And I joined the global war of terrorism. So I'm a GWAT veteran. September 11th was profoundly impactful for me. However, I was joining the military since 2nd grade. I heard JFK's speech, and it said, what can you do for your country? And I said, well, I wanted to be the first female president and a veterinarian. I'm in 2nd grade. And so when I heard his speech, I said, that's it. I'm going to go drive boats. And I got to tell you, I actually am. I have my small craft pin here, and I'm brown water Navy. So I drove boats for special operations, and I literally did patrol boats, rib boats, and got my small craft pin. And it's really, brown water Navy is very special. We're very different from the regular Navy. That means we guard all the rivers, or any water that's not blue, which is considered open ocean. And I did amazing things. And I did exactly what I said I was going to do since 2nd grade. And I got to drive boats and do amazing, awesome operations. However, I knew that when they put the pier in, that special operators were there, that the SEALs were there. And they knew where Hirsch was. And they helped the Mossad, and they helped the ISA, and that's Israeli Intelligence Services, if you don't know what that is. And they found where Hirsch was and some of the other American hostages. And they asked Biden if they could go in. And what I'm angry about right now is the SEALs took one of the most amazing shots that's ever recorded, right, to kill a pirate on a commercial ship and free the people. SEALs did that. And they knew where an American hostage was, multiple ones. There was a woman there, and she was being raped by Hamas constantly, an American. And the SEALs could have went in there and killed those motherfuckers. Simply put, just decimated them. And even if one American died, which I don't think they would have based on the operations I've been a part of, that would have been better than what happened to them, because Hamas murdered all of them, and then paraded it around. And there are still Americans right now that are Jews, but they're Americans first. They were born here in this country, and they're being held by terrorists. What happened to this country? Because the country that I defended, that when I joined for 9/11, it was put a foot in their ass. I don't know if you guys remember, like after 9/11 happened, it was Toby Keith, and it was all of these patriotic songs of how we eliminate terrorists. And that didn't happen. Did you know that Sinwar, who is one of the people that were part of Hamas that planned this, like Sinwar is dead now because of the IDF. But do you know who Sinwar is? Sinwar is responsible for Beirut. And if you don't know what I'm referencing to the Marines that were murdered by Sinwar in a bombing, in a terrorist attack. And do you know what our response was? Our response was to put a bounty out for Sinwar, millions of dollars. And he was a Hamas terrorist. And never once did we kill him to avenge our fallen Marines, our brothers in arms. Never once did any administration send someone to go kill the enemy that killed ours, that killed our service members. Never once. But the IDF did. So that tells you where we're at in our own democracy. That when the IDF is going to kill Sinwar because they've captured our people as Jews, they're finally killing him. But did you really hear anything on the news about avenging our service members, our brothers, our devil dogs that was murdered by a terrorist? No, didn't hear anything. But if you go look it up, you'll see that there's a memorial every year for them. What kind of justice is that? That we don't care enough to actually avenge the people that have been murdered by terrorists. Mark my words. The only way that Americans care is that when there's a terrorist attack here. And then again, my family and that of veterans and active duty service members rise to the call. But there's time where we have to actually take our democracy back. There's a time where we have to say, we have waged war for you. Where is our care? Because enough is enough. Because corruption and tyranny, that's what you see. Whether you're a Republican or Democrat, or even an independent, that is what we are thriving in right now. That there are Americans being held hostage. And there is more media coverage for the Iranian crisis of Americans being held hostage there than there are for Americans that are Jewish. That's purely anti-Semitism and hatred. And anti-Semitism in this country is at the highest it's ever been. And by the way, I'm kind of a counterterrorism expert. Worked in the DoD for a long time. And when I see anti-Semitism rise in the United States and globally, terrorism rises. Because when you don't actually refute that for one party of people, then it inspires terrorists to be the way they are. And you saw the response at universities. They tried to say that it was the First Amendment right. No, it wasn't. These were literal hate crimes against people who happened to be Jewish. And their response was with hatred so that they could have political posturing or press to say at Columbia University, oh, this is what we're participating in. Yet they get $400 million in federal aid. Do you know what veterans could do with $400 million? We could hire anesthesiologists at the VA. We could ensure that better prosthetics are there for the highest number of veterans who defended this country during 9/11, get the best prosthetics there are, rather than having to wait excruciating months because they don't have the proper prosthetic that fits. And that's just, I don't know, guys, less than $1 million. That's where your money is being spent. So start demanding accountability from Republicans and Democrats and realizing that we, the people, have a true voice and that your voice matters, just like your voice and your vote matters. But really demanding accountability for them is what we truly, truly must ensure, that when we have 250 years in this country, that we are ensuring that the republic is actually thriving. So thank you for listening today. If you have any questions, or if you're trying to combat PTSD, my foundation, Amazonian Warrior Foundation, is there to help you use board sport therapy. We do art therapy. We do woodworking. We make these cool lamps while we drink, bourbon for good at fun tasting events. And we do a lot of things. I'm a justice veteran advocate, so I will advocate for you so long as you're within a certain area. In court, if you need my help or assistance, we will also make sure that we can help you with your claim. If you have something that you probably have complex PTSD and actually need help in that. So because the VA uses fuzzy math, because it doesn't actually want to pay veterans what you actually do. Because if you were actually compensated for what happened to you in the civilian sector, it'd be millions of dollars. And so they want veterans to not actually claim the things that has affected them, because they want to keep robbing you instead. So I encourage you that if you haven't claimed something, or you think you might have something, to reach out to me or to a veteran service officer, because VSOs are free and you don't need a lawyer to actually get compensation from the VA. So thank you for listening to me. This is Gunslinger. By the way, it's one of my call signs from the military. So I am signing off, and I salute you, and please contact me, because guess what? As a veteran, I help you whether you're a Democrat or a Republican or an independent. And I truly believe that we must defend this nation together, as we did in war. So cheers. Hamas, let my people go. And stop donating to the Red Cross, because they are participating with terrorists. Thanks for listening, and I'm out.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in to Military Broadcast Radio. As we wrap up today's show, we want to remind you that the podcast of today's episode will be available right after we go off the air. So if you missed any part of the show, or want to listen again, be sure to check it out. And remember, we're here to support and honor our veterans. Your stories and experiences matter, and we are committed to giving you a platform to share them. That's right, we're here to give our veterans a voice. So don't forget to catch the podcast and stay connected with us, giving our veterans a voice.